Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a cleansing conversation with our Houston Black Theater executives. My name is Brian Keith Wilson. I will be your moderator for today. And so the day that we decided to do this, of course, is coming after the riots and many of the protests that we have been witnessing. And then also a lot of the conversation within the entertainment industry in regards to Broadway so racist, Hollywood so racist, all of those different hashtags that we've been reading. And ever since Griffin Matthews' video calling out Broadway as Amy Cooper, hashtag Broadway so racist is a popular hashtag and headline. Black theater artists are speaking out about their experiences with racism within the American theater. So while during this time we honor their stories and their fights, I'm reminded of the quote that Toni Morrison has, which says, "Nobody was minding us, so we minded ourselves." This cleansing conversation is between Houston-based theater executives and their continued diasporic work and minding the business of the Black theater. Again, my name is Brian Keith Wilson. I'm your moderator for today. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go around and would like to have each of our panelists introduce themselves. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
There you go.
I am Denise O'Neal. I'm the executive director for Fade to Black, and I've been in the theater scene for about 25 years. So I'm Denise.
All right, welcome, Denise.
Hi, I'm Alric Davis. I'm the, my bad. Keep going. Or...
Yeah,
go on.
Okay. Zoom already. Hello, my name is Alric Davis. I'm the founding artistic director of the Sankofa Collective. We're a 501c3 nonprofit theater here in Houston with the purpose to expose, educate, and enrich the lives of at-risk youth and adults to theater. Happy to be here.
Awesome.
Hi, everybody. My name is Eileen Morris. I'm the artistic director of the Ensemble Theater in Houston, Texas. We're the oldest Black professional theater in the Southwest. We're 43 years old. And our mission is to educate, entertain, and enrich a diverse community, all within youth and all of those that are present within our community to make art happen and to tell the stories. And I'm very happy to be here with all of you guys.
Happy to have you, Eileen. All right, last but not least, Miss Yaya.
Hi, I'm Yaya Smith. I am the Associate Artistic Director for the Creative Collab. As well, I sit on the board for the Sankofa Collective. And additionally, I teach theater at Prairie View A&M University. I personally have been doing theater since the age of 4. I took my first public theater class here in the city of Houston. Some of you may remember the Irish Sif merry-go-round. It's not there anymore, but yes, so I've been involved in this space in a while, for a very long time. And yeah, race is very much a key thing in this moment.
Right. And, you know, the great thing about this moment for what we're doing with these cleansing conversations is that we are really minding our business and minding the business of the Black theater. There was a meme that inspired me even more so to do something like this was I think it was right along the time that Beyonce released her Black Parade moment, and that was just a wonderful situation. My mom, who is 75 years old, was playing it on repeat, and so what I saw, like, after she released that video, there was a meme that says minding my own Black owned business. And after I seen that, that was even more so a moment of clarity for me, because we've seen the Zoom conversations. We've probably been invited to many of them in regards to where we have a situation of Black people are asking white folk for something. And in the midst of that, that's great. No one is not denouncing that fight. But then also, I wanted to hear from Black people who were in places of leadership. And I wanted to shift that focus in this moment in the Houston theater scene for us to be able to hear from leadership, Black leadership and the Black organizations. And this is just part one, because we know that there's so many more theaters in Houston, so many theater companies that are nomadic, you know, here and there. So this is just part one, and I wanted to introduce it with you guys because you guys are definitely fixtures within the Houston theater scene, even more so particularly within the Black theater scene in Houston. So the first question that I have for you guys is, detail your experiences of being a Black theater maker here in Houston. And then we'll probably use about 2-3 minutes of that. Let's go ahead and start. We'll start with Yaya.
It's been a very interesting experience. So for me, as I mentioned, I started acting at 4. I remember being probably, well, according to Ira Sif anyway, the first Black student that they let in at my age. They were very much like, oh, you know, we want to deal with students who are more advanced and who can read. And so it was all of those assumptions that they automatically made. My mother was an English teacher. I was reading by age 3 and quite well. And so when they finally allowed me to audition, it was, oh, she's special. And I'm thinking to myself, I know other Black children that can read, so I'm not special. But I think in this space, especially in a city like Houston, which, don't get me wrong, we've become very diverse over the last 30 years. But when Houston first kicked off, well, at least when I first got here, this was very much a space of everything was predominantly white, and especially in the theater community. I mean, as Eileen mentioned, the ensemble has been here 40 some odd years, but the fact that we're 40 some odd years later and the ensemble really is still the only standing physical Black theater in this city is crazy. You know, and then of course, being at Prairie View A&M, we get a lot of people reaching out to us because they want to diversify their theater. Nobody just sends us an email saying we need great actors. It's we need great Black actors. And so what's the difference? I don't know how race affects how good I am at creating a character. But yeah, that's my point there.
Cool. Eileen, can you piggyback on that?
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you. Thank you very much, Yaya, for your comments. I think when I think about the ensemble theater, first of all, I'm from Illinois, and you know, I started in theater at the age of, I always say 5th grade, when I, you know, started wearing glasses and went to Catholic school and wanted to really get involved in the arts. But at that same time, then Mr. George Hawkins was here in Houston. He was in Dallas. He had graduated from Prairie View A&M University as an account major, and found that there was not enough things that were going on to be able to, for him to be able to express himself as an artist. So that's during the time, you all know, the ensemble theater came around during the Black Arts Movement, which was in the 60s and 70s. And Mr. Hawkins was very much a part of that. And so he was a part of that because he needed to find a platform for African-American artists to be able to express themselves, to be able to have their voices heard, to be able to see people on stage that look like them. And I remember as growing up, that was the issue, is that all of everything that I saw in the arts, really in theater, were not people that looked like me. And so that was my, you know, kind of my motivation for wanting to be an artist. And then fast forward to Mr. Hawkins actually founding the ensemble theater as a result of that, because he wanted to have a place for African-American artists to be able to express themselves and be able to have their stories told, and for people that were Black people to be able to see that they too could find someone on stage that looked like them. Not saying that the other theaters were not doing that, but it was very far and few between. And you all know the type of roles that we had were not necessarily all the roles that were indicative of who we are as a people. So for me, you know, the ensemble theater, again, like others, have been doing this work for a very long time. But why? Because of the fact that our voices need to be heard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Denise, can we hear you on that?
So I come from a slightly different background. I started as a playwright, and then I started directing and then producing. So I kind of cut my teeth on self-producing the whole thing. You know, I think in the beginning, when I first started, the only example I had was Tyler Perry. And a lot of people jumped onto that, and they thought that's the way to do it. If you're self-taught, you don't really know that a lot of times theaters will categorize it. They will have you stay in your lane as a playwright. They will have you find a director, find actors, and then put the whole thing together. Well, we didn't have those resources a lot of times. So a lot of us in that particular community felt like the only way that I could get my work produced would be to do it myself. So that's how I kind of started. It was always challenging. You know, you'd have to raise the money yourself. You learned a lot along the way, made a lot of mistakes, and developed that way. But I think in that path, what I begin to see in my development of friends and alliances and new connections was that the voice of the African American playwright was not really prevalent. Locally, there wasn't a whole lot going on for the local playwrights. And then as I began to look a little further, I saw that nationally, there just wasn't a lot going on for, you know, African American playwrights to be at the forefront of American theater houses. You know, a theater company that's pretty large might do one or two, you know, maybe one play a season that's a Black playwright, but never two or three unless you were a Black theater. So we started Fade to Black, and it was done on the premise that it be mainstream, you know, that it be open to all races of people and backgrounds, but that the playwrights hold the place of being center stage. So the only people that are all Black with Fade to Black are the playwrights. And we have this community of people that are coming together with all of their diverse resources to uplift and advance the cause of underrepresented playwrights. So, you know, when it started, I just wanted to do a good thing. I just wanted to do something different. Was never in competition with anyone. It was just, it had not been something that was done often. You know, I'm sure other places did festivals, but we concentrated on the 10-minute play formats so that we could open up the gates for 10 playwrights every time we did a show. So I'm very thankful that it's been so successful. Apparently it was needed in the community. And so, you know, I think over the 8 years, things are changing. People love to see Black performers. They just like the spice and the flavor that we bring. And so I'm happy about that. But that's kind of, you know, how it was for me when I got started with this.
Awesome. And then also, please charge it to my mind and not my heart. I'm trying to navigate the screen and it pushed people out of the way. Ms. Debrina, could you introduce yourself and then piggyback that question as well? I wholeheartedly apologize.
No problem. I didn't want to interrupt the flow. My name is Debrina Sandifer. I am the Executive Artistic Director and Programming Manager for Assurient Arts. We focus on underrepresented populations and stories, also demographics, and we do that via theater, but also visual art and movement, in addition to professional development for adult artists, as well as young creatives as well, in addition to some arts and academic integration. So we're kind of a nice little gumbo. I started in theater at 8 years old is when I started to take it really, really seriously. My first role was Sweetie Potato. That was her name, and she was a sweet potato. After that, I went onward to magnet schools and things of that nature. And outside of working or founding and doing things for Assurient Arts, I'm also still an active creative myself, and I serve in an advisory capacity for Sankofa, in a board capacity for Fade to Black, and also in a board and consultation capacity for other non-Black spaces and entities as well. So with that experience, I have definitely seen some things as it regards to race relations in this particular market and demographic. I won't reiterate what others have already stated just to keep us going onward, but another thing that I've noticed was that in my skin, if I walk in and I am passionate and I am on fire for the arts and I am clear on what it is that I want and I am clear on what it is that you're asking of me and I can present it, then it's, oh, she's fiery. Oh, you know, when it's cute or it's like almost like a fetish, right? That fiery Black girl, yes. or if there is some projecting in the play, if it's someone who is feeling insecure within themselves or not accustomed to interacting with people of color or Black people, or ones who have operated in diverse spaces and can be a chameleon of sorts, but all of those layers are authentic versions of them as well, then it's kind of like, instead of passionate, then it's like, oh, is that like aggressive? Or are we like, you're not mad, are you? Or sometimes being accused of being upset or not liking someone simply because I am observing and I'm listening and I'm not tap dancing and pandering. So that's some of the stuff that I've noticed. Also, being approached from non-Black spaces to work, 9 times out of 10, or very frequently, maybe not 9 times out of 10, but very frequently, it's for the Black History show. It's for, I know that you want to do this show because this has to be on your bucket list, right? Your Raisins and the Suns, your For Colored Girls, things like that. And that's not to dishonor those shows at all. Be clear, I stand on those people's shoulders, but I am a human being first. I am a creative. Secondly, okay, I am a storyteller. I am a presenter of various forms of the human condition. So I can present Black stories, but there is no one singular Black story. So I am more interested in digging and all of that, like I said, underrepresented stories and demographics. And that doesn't only mean Black. I'm a member of WOCA. It's Women of Color in the Arts, for arts administrators. And it's not just Black women, it's different, you know, BIPOC people, because there's so much to dig through and from. So it's unfortunate, the things that we notice. I'll say one thing that I haven't seen us talk about much, and it's not to switch the narrative at all, let's be clear. I want to be very clear about that, but I think that we also need to have a conversation about how we ourselves contribute to that issue. If I am working in a non-Black space and there is another female who is also Black and she's a millennial, I should not try to drag her down just to secure my spot and that stamp of approval by the great powers that be, AKA white people. That's another conversation that we need to have. Of course, that type of mentality and crabs in a barrel, we all know that it stems from the institution of slavery, where right. People were human trafficked over here and stolen from their lands. They were not, I don't like the term slaves because I think it removes the human part out of them. They were enslaved people. So that mindset of tearing each other down and all of that, we know that that was instilled within us through Jim Crow, all that stuff, right? I don't have to reiterate that to this group. But if we are intelligent enough to spot that, and we are, Black people can thrive through, if the apocalypse happened right now, there would be somebody Black somewhere figuring out how to solve it and still coming together, right? So if we are that powerful of a being, and we can spot where that stems from, I know that we have it within us to strategize how to eradicate that and to have consequences internally amongst ourselves that like, hey, I saw you do that to that other person and that wasn't cool. So we're about to turn our backs on you because we're not going to play that. We're not going to tolerate it here. So I would like to see more of the accountability for the powers that be per se, but also amongst each other. And what I also see is that I see a lot of times we are begging for a seat at these tables. It's like that's the stamp of approval to direct or act or whatever for, you know, these 3 or 4 whatever non-Black theaters. That's your stamp of approval. That's what makes you legitimate in this market. And why? Right. And don't get me wrong, I love diverse spaces. I prefer to work with diverse, different people. I love that. Again, I'm a storyteller. I'm a creative first. My secondary career is in social services and crisis intervention. And the spine of that and the arts and education, which is the 3 main things I worked in, is giving people a voice, letting them understand that they have a voice and it matters. So again, diversity is very important to me. Diversity is all over my repertoire, my resume. However, we do not have to beg, and the stamp of approval does not have to come from a white entity. So that's a mentality that I would like to see chipped away at as well.
All right.
Hi, yes, I got kicked out, so I missed a little bit of the previous answer, but First of all, I just want to thank you for inviting me and on, Sankofa Collective to be a part of this. Surrounded by a panel of amazing, strong Black women. I mean, this is the place to be. Okay, just want to put that up. But with that being said, when I was 17 going to G.W. Carver High School in the Aldine ISD district here in Houston, Rashonda Jones, who remains a friend and mentor, we were instilled to be versatile theater artists and to do everything. So that was playwriting, directing, choreography, costume, acting, singing, dance, from you name it. And so from that, around the age of 17 and 18, I was looking around at the Houston theater scene, and there was not a lot for young millennials, and especially millennials who were of color. And we would see these amazing performers who would compete all throughout, UIL or competitive theater, and then stop right after high school and say, oh, well, I'm going to find a real career. And that, to me, it hurt, because there are so many people, complete stars, who you would never know, right? Who are now serving as other things. And most of those things were just, they felt like they could not have a career in the arts. And so we started the Sankofa Collective to sort of be that bridge in between your big, huge moment and you just graduating from high school or wherever. So that way you can have your professional credits, you can learn what the craft is both on stage and off stage. And what I found was that most times it's just everyone you said, like my story is no different from everyone in this panel, is that we have created out of necessity. And so there's always a need to create something just to fill the need and to service the community. And for us, that's exactly what we did and do. A lot of our actors and performers may not get the chance to be seen by the white, bigger, the bigger institutions, because they're not taken seriously, or they say, oh, well, you need more experience. But how can you get more experience if you're not cast? It's a cycle that people get very frustrated about, and then they leave the arts, they leave Houston. So what we're trying to do is incorporate more of a family atmosphere to teach and encourage. And so throughout that, like it's been going since 2013, I've been able to grow both individually and with the company as a Black theater maker. And I've seen the changes within the community where there is more of a push for diversity, yes, but a lot of things it have not changed. As far as casting, as far as representation, as far as providing true diversity, and encouraging voices that are of color, not just Black faces on a white voice, because then you're not able to represent a marginalized community. And so it's been very interesting, but I've learned a lot.
You just don't know how joyful, gratifying, pleasing, whatever, all those words it is to hear from Black leaders in the theater. We have been hearing from white leaders and their apologies and their plans that they're wanting to enforce once the curtain rises again. But it's so gratifying to hear this coming from people who are of color, who are in places of leadership. And again, I thank everyone for agreeing to do this cleansing conversation, because I think truly it is a cleansing conversation for us. But I think actors who are out there working need to hear from the leaders, Black leaders that are in the theater business as well. And I really want to piggyback off of something that Debrina was talking about. And it's a question that I have for each of you. Why do some performers deem the work of white theater companies more superior than Black theater companies? Yaya, let's have you start.
So I will say that I think a lot of it is just our general society. I mean, we don't have to look just at theater to understand that a term that I know definitely my parents, grandparents use, white is right. I mean, and that's the way that we've all been socialized in America. Our norm in America is white, male, Protestant, and heterosexual. Everything else has a label. And so definitely when you come into a community, a smaller community such as the theater, this is what we're taught. I mean, even if we want to go back as far as these intro to theater classes that students take in high school, where we're taught that the Greeks started theater, and there was theater hundreds of years before we got to the Greeks. However, the Greeks looked the most like white people, so we're going to start there. And so if I'm teaching a child at even, you know, at 16, 17, that this is where theater started, then this is what they believe. I mean, even looking as early as A Raisin in the Sun, the things that had to be changed just for it to go to Broadway. We've always been censored, and we've always been altered in a manner that for us to get this widespread exposure, it needs to make white people comfortable. And so that need for comfort in our community and in our society is what's putting us in this space. As much Debrina mentioned a number of times, we're consistently out here looking for that white approval because we've been taught that that is what we need to do. I mean, even the discussion of the quote unquote canon. So when we're talking about things that are in the canon is the Shakespeare. I personally, and people love to come at me for this as a theater professor, I don't care for Shakespeare. Never have. I know it because it's the standard, you know, for theater, especially as a professor, especially teaching theater history, but it doesn't really move me. It's not that amazing to me. There are other playwrights that have stories that are just as strong, that have morals that are just as strong. But once we've created this canon, we believe that we need to fit in to make it right.
Yeah, let's go ahead, Denise.
Well, you know, I come from a producer standpoint, so I'm always going to look at your subscriber base, what pushes you and keeps your theater open, what is going to be of the greatest demand for your organization. I think that's really an important thing. But to piggyback on what she was saying, you know, a lot of people will accept and think that white theater is more acceptable and more valid across the board because there's not a lot of space that's given to not just Black playwrights, but other playwrights of other colors and backgrounds. So I mean, we are still in a minority position in that regard. You know, that those theaters may feel like there's a greater appeal, there's a greater identity to it. And then when they do a Black play, it's like a big specialty thing. We'll do it during February and we will give attention to that. But other than that, we don't identify with that life. You know, that's an African American experience. It's not my experience. And so we were brave enough to put them on the forefront. We may suffer financially by doing that. I actually had a lady say to me, she was the leader of a community theater here in Houston, and she was saying innocently, she said, you know, it'd be great to have a Black play, not all season now, not all season, but just a Black play. And she, bless her heart, she was just speaking from the heart. She didn't mean anything by it. But I know, being over a theater, handling the budget of a theater, doing what is necessary to keep it going, you know, if you make the wrong move, your subscriber base leaves and you don't have a theater. So, you know, is our work less relevant and less impactful than others? Absolutely not. But that you know, for the larger theaters to give us space like that, they've got to see the need for it. They've got to see how, you know, this is a good thing for us to embrace and keep going every single year. So, you know, why do people think white theater is better than Black theater? I think that's just a mindset that needs to be challenged. But that, you know, that never stopped me from moving on. So I mean, I don't know what would be in their hearts and minds, but I think that might be a part of it.
From what if I could just jump in,
Yeah,
from
go ahead.
a lot of the artists that we talk to, working with Black theaters, sometimes that your compensation or the process itself is truncated or sacrificed or limited compared to what you might be able to get with a white institution. I mean, we are only a 7-year-old institution, so our checks and our fees and everything that we're giving is not going to be on par with older institutions here in Houston. So, you know, we've reached out to certain people who are like, oh no, I can't do for that. I don't get out of bed for that much. And I understand that, and I get it, right? As an artist myself, like, I understand you have a value, but sometimes in order to get your leg up and to have an organization really grow, you know, you have to start from a different place. You have to think about the context of, well, white institutions are usually better funded, they're better supported, and just socioeconomically in a better place than Black institutions. So you may not be able to offer the same amount that you can offer a Alley or Tuts. And so what I've noticed is not everyone is willing to make that quote unquote sacrifice sometimes.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because that was one of the things that I was thinking about, and it's definitely right on point with everything that's being said. The fact remains is that it's a bigger picture than just, you know, why do other artists, or why do they feel that they can go to this theater company opposed to this one, but it's about economically what's happening in the world and how Black institutions are not being supported, funded, getting the recognition, having all of those dynamics that are being given to our counterparts in various ways. And so when you look at it, I think we have to peel back the layers of what really is at the crux of what's happening here. And that is that, like, right now, all of across the country, everyone knows that the world is in flux. The world is in pause. The world is in COVID-19. And so to me, each and every one of those persons that have been supporting us should continue to support all of our institutions in whatever way they can, and even in more ways if they can. And other funding sources should become viable for us to be able to continue to survive, because we don't have maybe the financial resources that others have. And so we need to be looked at in a different way. And I think that that's only fair. So that's one thing. The other thing that I wanted to just bring up is that, you know, years ago when the Ensemble Theater, during the time when George, and then after George passed and I became artistic director, one of the things that we looked at was like making sure that we had a kind of a cross storytelling that we would do. So in other words, we would do plays that were A Hat Full of Rain, or you know, A Midsummer Night's Dream, or something like that. But then, you know, I got to thinking about, as I grew in my maturity as an artist and as a female and as a Black artist, why would I continue to tell stories that are not our stories, that are not relevant for what we do each and every day? And there are many plays and many stories out there that speak to the African American experience. And so to me, it's important that the Ensemble Theater, I can only speak for our institution, continue to tell the stories that are relevant to us as a people, that speak to human dynamics. So that means it's relevant to a diverse community and to the world as a whole. And that I feel that it's our responsibility to make sure that those things happen. So when you look at funding sources, artists feeling that, just like Elwood said, that, you know, the idea of going to a Black institution or a white institution, there may be some discrepancy and some other dynamics with that. But I think that we as individuals and as artists have to make the decisions for ourselves as to what it is we will and won't do. And we have to make sure that we are voicing and the opinion and making sure that our subscribers, our funders, our board, our artists, our staff understand the stories that we're telling and the impact that we're making on the world.
Great. Debrina, can you close us out with this?
In addition to what everyone else mentioned, I also believe that there is this layer of elitism when it comes to the arts as well. I believe that not only do the white institutions receive more funding because, of course, being what's considered mainstream or white, but also because if little Susie is taking classes at this institution and her father is an oil tycoon and he wants that tax write-off, well, little Susie loves coming home every Thursday to talk about this class. So boom, tax write-off because this is a 501c3. Some of our children do not have as easy access to a quality, large institution of the arts. Although Third Ward is very close to downtown, so is Fifth Ward. It feels like worlds away for the people who are indigenous to those communities because of that perceived barrier that's been enforced over and over again. So I think that's a part of it. That's why I was excited when the Deluxe was renovated, because it's right in the heart of the Nickel, of Fifth Ward. It makes that exposure more part of that community's normality. Because, for example, years ago, I worked with Fifth Ward, I think Fifth Ward Project. It has a different name now, but it was all boys, adolescent, of color in the Fifth Ward, and it was a theater class, and I was brought in because they didn't know what to do with these boys. That was their words. Shakespeare's over their heads. That's what I was told. They don't know how to respond to this. These people are out of control, as though these young men were animals, as though they were barbaric. But when you talk to them, or even when I taught at HSCDA and things like that, some people of color and Black people believe that theater is not for us, which you know is not true. But when we look at the narrative and the images that are pushed and perpetuated, and where these larger entities or better funded, more quality entities are situated, it is not within our communities. Or the ones that are in our communities, we have that stigma of they're going to quote unquote nigify things, or there will be a poor quality, a lower work ethic and things like that. So it's a layer of, it's like a 7-layer dip. It's these different things, but we do have to eradicate that elitism that is perceived about the arts, because I've seen it amongst us, you know, as well. So yeah, that's my tidbit.
And to piggyback off that elitism, like it's still pretty prevalent. I know that, you know, Black people will not attend if they feel like they're not represented, if they feel like, oh, they ain't got nothing to do with me, right? And so as, you know, leaders, it's always our job, Black artistic leaders, it's our job to say, okay, well, how can I make sure my people still feel represented, that they are still a part of the conversation? Even if we do delve into Shakespeare, if we delve into musical theater, if we delve into this, you know, trying out different things. But at the same time, at least we at the Sankofa Collective, like, we like to introduce certain things that might be thought-provoking, that take you out of your comfort zone to say, okay, have you seen a show like this? Or you like this, well, you might like this, you know? Because again, it's marketed to believe that Blackness is a monolith, that it's just one thing, it's just Boys in the Hood, the ghetto urban play, and like, while that's amazing and there's so much space for that, there's also space for Cleopatra. There's also space for Marie Antoinette. You know, we have those flexibility. We have that flexibility and versatility to tell any story just as other institutions do. So I think this, you know, conversation is very cleansing in order to get people to open their minds and say that, you know, it's not just one thing. There's enough room for everything at the table.
Yeah. What we're going to do, I know Denise, she is a busy lady. She's booked and busy, like many of us are. And I just want Denise to give us some closing ideas on where you see Black theater in the city of Houston in the future.
Wow, that's heavy. I think we should keep pushing. I think we are in a really, really wonderful wave of movement. Unfortunately, it came through the Black Lives Matter situation, but I think people are starting to awaken and open their eyes to disparities that need to be leveled out. And I'm really, really happy to do whatever I can to be a part of the advancement of that. I have a festival, and we do it twice a year, and we try to purposely make it impactful and inclusive of everyone, because they need to see what these Black playwrights are doing, and from that help to advance those particular playwrights. But I too have had a lot of people come and ask me, what should I do? How should I feel? What, you know, how, as I'm white, what, you know, what can I do to help this movement? And it's, you know, it's just continue to raise awareness, continue to check people when you see that there's some inequalities. You know, be a part of the solution. And so a lot of times they may just not know what to do. You know, it's uncomfortable for them, but they love Black friends and family, and they want to be a part of things getting better. So um, in the theater scene, I would like to see other theaters do more Black plays. I think that if you have to start someplace, start there. You know, not just make it during Black History Month. Do 2 Black plays per season if you can, if you dare to do that. That's a big pill for a lot of the theaters to just say, listen, we're going to do more than just our standard white plays. You know, but again, from the position of a producer, I know that they have to look at their bottom line. They have to look at what will sell and what will be embraced by their current subscribers and patrons. But now is the time for them to wake up to that and see, you know, we have maybe not meant to not include some other people, but we have. And now is the time for us to write that. And it takes bravery, it takes organization of those companies to make changes. But, you know, I'm always here. You know, people want to find out what I can do, how I can collaborate with you, what I can do to be more sensitive to this movement. I'm all ears for that. I'm always going to help with that. So I see it moving. I see the awareness being open, and I see that, you know, the theaters are sensitive to conversation about making changes. And even if they have to do that with baby steps, I think that they owe it to this community of African Americans who have supported them to make those strides. So I'm hopeful that in the years to come, we will see new things, new alliances, and we'll have, you know, better, more inclusive and more diverse theater scene overall.
Wonderful. Thank you, Denise, so much for your insight and your time. And could you give us those dates of Fade to Black so that way our people who are listening and watching will know and put that on their calendar?
Yes. The Fade to Black this year has been postponed to September the 10th through the 12th of this year. So we'll be at Match. You can find out all of the information from mainly our website, fadetoblackfest.com, or if you go to our Facebook page, which is updated often, Fade to Black Fest, on our Facebook page, you can kind of see real time what's going on. So we are planning and preparing for this new season, this postponed date, and how we're going to make it safe for everyone and make it a really great festival for our 8th season. I hope to see you guys there.
Wonderful, and definitely we will definitely be there to support. Thank you, Denise. And for those of you all can hang on for about 2 more questions, and then we're going to close out. So in the midst of what's going on in our world, you know, one of the words that I'm hearing a lot of people say is collaboration and community. What are your thoughts on forming an alliance and doing a yearly unified audition for Black actors?
Well, I think it's a great idea. I mean, you know, first of all, the thing is that we have always, I think all of us as Black institutions, and especially I know at the Ensemble Theater, the plays that we select are strategically planned out and processed, not only to fit the vision and the mission of the institution of the Ensemble Theater, but also to make sure that we have platforms for our artists and our audiences. And so when I think about the work, because people have asked us, well, what are you all doing? And it's like, we live in this world every day. First of all, we live in your world. You don't live in our world. And so as a result of us living in the world that is more European, we understand that who we are as a people is, you know, is not necessarily looked at the way the whole is. This is a diverse world now. And so when, you know, what it was when I was a little girl growing up in Illinois is not the way it is today. I mean, there's much more diversity and more, you know, even though I was really engaged in my culture as a young person and went to Catholic schools all my life, but my parents made sure that I knew who I was as a Black young girl growing up. So I think when we look at the fact that with community and collaboration, that we've always done that. We've always been ones that they've come to look at, to make a way. But I think we have to strategize more about the work that we're presenting. And I'm saying this for us at the Ensemble Theater as well, that we have to strategize more about making sure that the stories that are being told, that the ideas and the, looking at, racial disparity and making sure that social justice is being, that's all tied into all of our work. Anyway, it's there. And I think that we have to help people to understand the importance of why that work is being done, why that specific story is being told, and what you can do as an audience, as a patron, as an artist, to help people to see it more in a more global sense of community and collaboration. And that can be a really important part. I thought about something when we were talking, all of us were saying different things about, our work and what it is. Everett Evans, who used to be the theater critic of the Houston Chronicle, many of you already may remember him. He's been retired now, maybe about 5-6 years, I guess. And Everett Evans came to an ensemble show one day, and we were talking at intermission. And he said to me, Eileen, what would we do if we didn't have the Ensemble Theater representing African-American artists? And I said, well, there are now, there are many other institutions that are coming into play that are representing African-American artists. You have a plethora of young artists that are coming in, that are doing the work, that are making statements and providing another platform for artists to be able to work. And I said, but the thing is that the Ensemble Theater has been a mainstay in our community for 40 some years. And at that time, it was 30 some years at the time. And so I think that is important to know that we are here, we are doing the work, we are telling the stories. And so we're not to be negated as a result of the fact that, we may not have the funding sources or the subscriber base or, other things that may be looked at, or the equity status or those types of things. And so I think that it's important that we continue to be mindful and be ever present in the fact that community and collaboration is a part of who we are and a part of our DNA and our art, and that we will continue to do that in a more strategic way.
Good, yes. Sabrina.
Regarding like an alliance auditions for Black artists, Black
Yeah.
actors, I personally think that would be quite useful, because what I have found personally, just in my experience, is sometimes when you make the calls for the auditions, I don't know, it seems like some people miss the information, not even just being lazy or, whatever the case may be, that it doesn't stick, or maybe sometimes it is kind of touchy on where exactly to advertise when you're looking specifically for Black actors. So I think just bringing them all together would be incredible. Another thing that I think is, I know that there are some, excuse me, you guys, I know that there are some Black actors who feel as though they don't show up to the auditions or gravitate towards the Black pieces because they have been told by our white counterparts, but also within us, that they're not Black enough, or they have to be more urban or whatever. I've heard that too. When I tip my toe back into acting here and there when people ask me to, because that's where I started. I think this will create a cleansing thing and a healing situation for our community too, for people to see that we can all come together and not be the same, and not have the same style and not have the same dialect. And even for us who have diversity, and some of us, are Black, but we have like diversity in the actors that we need and things like that, because we do a plethora of pieces. That would be great. Like if you're looking for you're looking for a Black actress, but she's like the alternative girl who looks like she may go to raves and like have her septum pierced or whatever else. So you're looking for that type of chick. I think it's great to see everyone come together. And I think it would be a strong networking tool for us in leadership, but also for actors. Because what we also need to do is, now we know that the nature of our game is competitive. It's a never-ending hustle. It's a lifestyle. It's not an occupation. It's not a hobby. It's a lifestyle, right? I think seeing them all together, and like sometimes when I do auditions, like I have a friend who's like, you make it like making the band when Diddy did it, because I'll bring people together and do like some stuff that I didn't tell them would be a part of it. Like, hey, work in these groups, create this choreography, let me see you together, to bring them together. I think we have to break down that competitive factor amongst each other. I think it's good to have that healthy competition and like iron sharpens iron mentality, but not, hey, myself and another Black woman with brown, she's a brown skinned Black woman with wider hips and a Southern accent and a big forehead like me. We're the same type, so I hate you. I don't even know you, right? So I think it would just be great and healing and beautiful. I would love to see that happen, even if I weren't a part of it. But I would love to see that happen. I think it's excellent and needed.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I want. I'm glad that we have you all here, because you would be definitely people that I would want to talk about logistics in regards to something like that. And I know many a time we have all sat at the table and we've had people come through for audition, and they didn't know how to audition from their, from that hole in the wall. And I think that by having some type of unified conglomerate situation, one, it would be able to help with teaching how to formally audition for theater, and again, another opportunity to establish networks, to be able to have all of these powerful Black executives in a room together or in a Zoom, because we know Corona got us in situations like this, but to be in that type of a moment, to be in one place, one time, and then also circling back, making sure that we're supporting each other's work and we're at each other's productions, and having just that truly big unified presence in regards to what we're doing in the theater. Yaya, can you expound upon that? What would your thoughts be?
I think it's a great idea, of course. I think also one of the things that we need, that it would help do, is to get people to value their space in the Houston arts. So somebody mentioned earlier that a lot of our younger artists especially are leaving the city. And so to get that understanding that Black art has a stronghold here in this city, and you don't have to go to a New York or to an LA to get what you can get right here at home. And I think that it will also say to these white theater companies that love to, when they have their big Black history production, go out to New York and pay their main actor thousands of dollars because they want to bring in somebody who has a name, that we have the talent here. You don't have to go anywhere for it. We have probably more talent here than they have in some of those other places. So I think it'd be a great thing to bring us all together as a functioning community. And again, the stronger we are together, the more we can do for the outside world.
Yeah. In Chicago, they have a Black Alliance of all the theater companies there. You all are familiar with that. And that's what this reminds me of, when you're talking about it, it's those thoughts. And it's because there's so many of them, and they wanted to come together and make sure that their community knew about all of them, but also so that the city of Chicago knew about what it is that all of these different entities of color have to offer. So yeah.
And I don't know, Eileen, I don't know if you remember, me and you, we talked about this years ago.
I did.
We were talking about, like, in Chicago, there's a website where you can go on this website and type in Debrina's Black play that she's doing, or whatever. It is like a Google for theater. And then everything that's on Debrina's calendar comes up. Yeah. Everything you type in Black queer theater. And it's just, I'm like, okay, we're we're the fourth largest cities in America. That's and right. We have, from me being a theater critic and also a theater a theater maker, seeing all the talent that we have in this great city, just like what Yaya was saying, I'll go to Tuts or wherever, and I'll see a production of The Wiz, and I'm loving the production, but I'm also seeing two Houston girls up there oohing and ahhing in the balcony when they could be playing Dorothy.
Absolutely. Yeah, amen.
And I said that in my review. Y'all know me, I speak from my heart, and I speak the truth, and I do not care, because it's just my opinion. And I always say at the end of my reviews, this is my 2 cents, spend them how you may. But I do value community. I value, one, my people, and even more so the art that my people create. And so seeing that, that was just another aha moment. It's just like, you know, we have this great talent that's coming from all of these wonderful companies, all these wonderful places. And then this opportunity of doing The Wiz, you bring in, you know, said actress from New York City, which is great. She was fabulous. But at the end of the day, it also goes back to another thing as well. When you look at what goes on in the opera sector as well. You know, many of us know the opera world. The opera world is all solely based on benefactors and board. Those are the people that truly make the decisions in casting, even that too. And so seeing that we have a young lady who, Michelle Johnson, is one of the best mezzos that I can think of that could play the role of Aida. You know, she come out of Holman Street, and here she is having to go in other places to play the role of Aida, when the role of Aida was just played by a white Russian woman here in Houston, Texas. Here in Houston, Texas. You know, so, you know, those are the you know, the hard truths of our business and what we do. But it's, again, a great opportunity to be amidst such great leadership here in Houston. Auric, I don't know if you heard the last question, but we were talking about being able to establish some type of alliance, theatrical alliance, and a unified audition for Black actors. What would your thoughts be on something like that?
Yeah, and thank you for being patient with our technology. We clearly, the network connection is acting crazy. The enemy don't want us to convene. That's why we need to do it.
Don't want it to happen.
Like of all the times. But what I think is important to build that Black unity, and how can we encourage each other to hold each other accountable as well? And something that I've seen, especially in the DC community, has a lot of reckoning with a lot of the issues, both publicly and privately, with the city of Houston. And so what I've seen here is that there's been that, but Black people really haven't been a part of the conversation as much, right? Or maybe it's more of an accusatory tone versus saying, okay, well, what can we do to actually solve the issues, right? So I'm very here for a Black alliance, because if we have issues of racism, discrimination, or something, the Black Theater Alliance here in Houston can say, you're not going to represent my people like that. You're not going to treat one of our own like that. So I would love something like that to sort of stand in solidarity together. Just like Debrina said, I did catch the tail end of that. We do have a little bit of that competition aspect, because Texas is a sports state. So everything is about the big championship, the UIL prize, right? And so we all want a cookie for doing great work. But as we know, and a lot of people in this room know, our jobs are thankless. You know, if I've done my job well, you wouldn't even know I existed, right? So how do we sort of blend all of our brainstorming, all of our great talents together to say what will make actionable change happen? And a lot of that starts with education, which is why we try to teach people as we're doing productions. Yaya's directed a few shows for us. So she's also a professor, and that was strategic because she can teach you, okay, hey, don't come to no audition with no basketball shorts. Remember that, Yaya? that's inside story. Don't come here. Oh, I got all the stories, but it's important that we start to set a standard for excellence. And that our people that, you know, we have people that work with artists or whatever, they have a set a standard to where if you see a Sankofa artist, if you see a Black Theater Union artist, you know they're gonna come with it. They're gonna know, they're gonna be able to do those techniques, be versatile, and still be respectful and articulate in what they want and how they can benefit. So I'm for it. Sign me up. Put me in the email. I'll be the mascot and cheerleader. Let's go for it.
Awesome.
I jump in real quick on what he was saying. So what I think that's phenomenal. You know, people who have worked with me know that I'm more like a football coach. And it's not to break someone's spirit. It's because I see things in people even when they can't see it themselves, and I refuse for them to be less than that. Even if they walk in and they think they're confident. And if I see something higher, that's the standard I'm holding them to, because I think we have to do that for each other. That's my opinion. I would rather you be frustrated with me in class or in one of our productions or whatever, to go out there and they put you on a nice little list to make sure you don't work anymore and you have no clue about it. You don't know what's happening. So that's the why behind it. And also because, Brian, you mentioned, or someone else as well mentioned community. A part of community, when we look at historically what our culture has been, which we've strayed away from in some ways, is covering each other. Yeah. Not in a way of not being accountable, but covering each other. You know, I know, as you can see, I'm a vibrant lady. I'm very headstrong. I'm very like, I want to figure it out before I ask for help. Now I ask for help, but some things just ain't my lane, but I want to figure it out. I'm a thinker, but I have people in my life who will jump in because they feel like, I know you can, but with me around, you don't have to. So for us, when Ulrich spoke of like that safe space almost to where we are as an entity holding other spaces accountable, that's what's necessary as well. I've been speaking with one of the founders for Broadway Advocacy Coalition. He's going to be on my radio show that I host and produce tomorrow, actually. He's LA based, but he's from Houston. Mm-hmm. That's a part of what we're doing because we all know everyone doesn't have the same personality and we know how we're branded. I kind of alluded to that and spoke of it earlier. An actor, we know that a lot of times actors are viewed as disposable, or if you are the sole Black director in that season and you come in and even if you ask, hey, just wondering when are we going to schedule the production meeting? Oh, she's problematic. Oh, it becomes all of that. So some people don't feel as though they can stand up and have a voice. So it happens more privately. But what happens if you keep talking about something privately? There is no action, there is no traction. So not only would I like to see that a unified audition of sorts, but I would like to see something that's similar to a Broadway Advocacy Coalition, similar to a WOCA, to where it is an entity where people can come, be fed, bring something to the table as well, because we need to recondition our minds to that, you know, as well. And be covered. That way, when these people want to have these conversations, okay, you want to ask us how you should feel and what you should do. I have a list of consultants who do this professionally, who you can contact, and these are their rates. We have to place value on ourselves. For Asurion Arts, the very first gigs that we had, before we had a budget, before we had revenue, we paid our artists, because for me, that was very important. I want to put my money where my mouth is, even if it means I have to sacrifice something. I don't care. We have to do that amongst each other. We shouldn't have to be in these fights alone. We shouldn't have to be in meetings like this and it becomes emotionally charged. And it's just like, let's do a lynch mob against Whitey. And it's like, well, wait a minute now, you know, that's not quite right either, right? But we also can't be in meetings like this too, where we are the minority and we feel as though we have to be silenced. Or like Brian, that meeting we were on,
oh my God,
we were there too. I know me speaking up would be like, they would be like, who is this Angela Davis's granddaughter? I knew.
And you saw my mic. My mic went out.
When I ain't say nothing.
They did not want to hear what I had to say. Eileen, I was representing.
Right, because again, we can be articulate and professional, but you know, excuse my language, but I'm a millennial. I know that there's been spaces that I've been in, and y'all, I've worked at the Alley, I've worked at the Main Street Theater, like blah, blah, blah. And I know that some reactions I've gotten were more so about how dare this little young Black bitch have the nerve to come in here. And I wasn't disrespectful, I didn't do anything, but it was more just like, yeah, I'm coming in to do a great job because this is my job. I don't really, like, I'm not.
You have the audacity.
Right, I have the audacity to operate in my gifts that was given to me. Don't you, but you keep calling me. You're in my inbox and my email because you know that I'm going to deliver, but something about me not seeking your approval or putting my head down and groveling makes you uncomfortable. And again, I'm not saying, like, we do need to be accountable. So I'm not saying that we should walk in with attitudes to be ignorant or whatever else, but I'm saying our presence, like, I shouldn't have to make myself palatable, or like that meeting we were on, Ulrich and Brian, where, you know, another Black creative was like, well, she was like fluffing her statements with smiles and kept saying, but I need you to like me. She was literally saying that. I'm careful about what I'm saying because I need you to like me, which is true to a certain extent. But y'all, the politics that we have in this community has got to be eradicated as well, because this is why we're sitting around crying, and we have the Houston Press trying to represent us by a critic who is not very favorable about certain Black shows, but in the same review will credit the white theater for letting the Negroes do their own play. Yay, that's problematic. We're
Right.
not looking at what is the motivation behind highlighting that. We're not looking at every actor who's being interviewed are the pick-me actors who are deemed palatable by white people. They are the people who will in some ways pander to you. They are the people who will look down on a Black institution. They are the ones who will cause issues for some of them I've directed myself. One in particular, I cast her when no one else would because I was that age once and I wanted to feed into her. That girl gave me so much hell. It was awful. But she had a story about a white person downright disrespecting her. As her director, she said nothing because she respected their position more. All of these are issues, y'all.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm just
No, you're fine.
No.
Eileen.
Everything that you're saying, though, first of all, it makes my heart really happy because, I'm the senior of the group. So I'm just saying it like it is. And in being a Black woman, all the time we're dealing with these issues. And what I hear you all saying and what is absolutely true is that we have to show by example, though. So we have to be who we know we are to be as Black people, as women, as men, as creators, as leaders. We have to set the example. This is what you can and can't do. And this is what we know is important for us to be able to have a voice, to be able to be heard, to have equity, diversity, and inclusion in our own institutions, which we have each and every day. And so now we're telling you this is how you can have it. But I have to share these words very quickly, Brian. I'm so sorry, but I have to. Nicole Salter is a board member with me on the Theater Communications Group. She's an independent artist. Her work is stellar. She's a really wonderful artist. And she spoke at the first TCG, Theater Communications Group, conference that we had in May. And this is just a little bit of what she said that I think is important for us as artists of color. She said, we do it because representation matters. We do it because we love it. We do it because it is our calling, our gift. We do it because it's fun and exciting. We do it for the hearts and minds that we touch, for the joy and for the gratifying feeling that we get when we've made a positive impact. We do it because we have the courage to follow our dreams. We do it for the healing and the catharsis, revolution and change. And that was in May 8th, 2020. This is why we do what we do, because of all of those things that Nicole said, because of our beliefs, because we know that we can make a difference. And I'm just thankful to hear everybody on this panel talking about these issues that, for the longest, so many of us have just been the sole person having to deal with. Even 3 years ago when I won the Bold Women's Theater Leadership Grant, I was the only person of color. 5 women were chosen, 5 artistic directors out of 43, and I was the only one. And then, of course, then it was like, oh, well, they had to pick one, or not that they had to pick one, but that they, that the world thought like that. But what happened, what I found from that time is that, the ensemble theater earned its right to be able to be one of those bold women of color. But the world thought something different, and so I'm really excited and grateful to be able to have and hear the things that are being discussed today. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. And one thing that I've learned with working with Eileen Morris is that she is the person you call with the great button to put on the end of a moment. And when we did I think my first or second podcast, we were just talking and we were going on, and at the end of the podcast, Eileen she was just like, wait, I got something. And I was like, oh, Eileen, go. And it was just like what you were just saying now. It was that this is the great way to end part 1 of this conversation, because I think that this is an ongoing cleansing conversation that we all need, but also this is the beginning of working towards an alliance, unified situation as well that will happen in the city of Houston, of course, with all of you guys being, at the forefront of that. I do thank you all so much because I do want to be on time. I know that we have kind of gone over it, but we will continue this again. We will try to synchronize schedules again and come back to the table. This is round one of a cleansing conversation. I thank you guys so much for your time. Is there any closing comments before we close out?
I just want to thank you all for sharing time and energy and space. Brian, thank you so much for inviting me into this space and something that you're leading. And to hold myself accountable, you all, I just wanted to tell the truth to help things to be better for all of us. There was no malice in my intention. I just wanted to tell the truth, to bring those things up to the surface so that we can truly begin to cleanse and heal, just like all of you mentioned great, amazing points as well. So thank you all for sharing time and energy and space.
Absolutely.
If I may, really briefly, I just want to encourage people that are watching this. If you're an artist, please continue to create art. At the beginning of this, I had 4 shows lined up. I was just like rolling on the high, right? And when the pandemic hit, I immediately entered depression and anxiety and all of these things because of the dark unknown, right? And there's still a lot of questions with this with what's going to go on. How can we get rid of this virus? How can we continue to make art? All of those things. But the community contacted me, our supporters, our parents, our kids contacted me like, hey, Ulrich, what you doing? Sankofa doing stuff? Come on. I know you're not feeling well. Let's get it. So meeting that call and meeting the community is important, and people need you. They need your voice. They need your talent, and you can heal through art. So keep going, keep creating, no matter what that means, even if it's Zoom or whatever. Keep making art.
Awesome. Yeah. Close. You got something to close us with?
Honestly, really and truly the same thing. Is just keep making the art. I'm telling you, for your mental health, for your physical health, for your psychological health, and even for the education aspect. Art very much is an educator for a lot of people who don't get that formal education. People can read things, understand, and see things when they see performances and visual art and dances that they would never get if you just handed them a book. So honestly, keep being out there, keep doing the work, keep creating, and I'm telling you that we're going to make it just like we do any other time.
Right. We are resilient and we always rise. Thank you guys again so much for this moment and sharing space, thoughts, and energy. As you know, if you pay attention to my social media, I've been very vocal in regards to our stance as Black people in the theater community. And in 2020, I have said this many a time in meetings, and it didn't get heard in that meeting that we were on, Debrina and Ulrich. But in 2020, I will say this again, I am at my wit's end. I am tired of teaching white people how to treat me. And when I say that, I mean it. And it's an awesome moment to be in a space with people of color, people that are Black, people that are storytellers and executives in the arts and theater world, to be able to talk about our experiences and hopefully shed light on what's going on in the Black theater scene in Houston. This, again, is only part 1 of what's coming out of this situation. And I thank you guys so much for this cleansing conversation. If you're watching, stay tuned for part 2 of the cleansing conversation. And also I'll be posting links of everyone's website so that way you can stay in touch on what's going on with the ensemble, with Sankofa Collective, the Shurian Arts, as well as the Fates to Black Play Festival as well. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I want to thank my panelists for being here, and stay tuned. Part 2 is coming up next. Thank you guys so much.